This week, Dave Ramsey went on a rant related to retirement, and he touches on a topic I care a lot about, and that's the 4% rule. So in just a minute, I'm going to play a bit of Dave's rant, and I'll respond with some more context. And for the record, I'm sympathetic to this rant because I agree with Dave that the 4% rule does a lot of disservice to people who are preparing to retire. But Dave also overlooks a reality that would cause this advice to blow up a lot of people's retirement. So at the end, I'm going to explain that thing that Dave overlooks and then also give you a tool for helping navigate around some of that risk. But first, let's watch Dave's rant.
I found on your website a little article that talks about 4 to 5% withdrawal rate. And I was trying to run the numbers around that, and I thought I was close. And then about a month ago, George Camel released a video that said that the withdrawal rate for a 30-year time horizon should be closer to 3%. So if I can establish financial independence comfortably, then I was wondering if I could ease up on baby step 4 to pay off the house faster.
Okay, I'm a little confused because I don't know what the hell George is doing a 3% withdrawal rate, because that's absolutely wrong. I'm going to have to find out where that video is and get it taken down.
For the record, George works for Dave. He actually helps host this show sometimes. So kind of a bummer for him getting called out on TV like this or on the radio show. I'm not sure if this is on radio or TV, the internet, all the places.
You don't need to have a 3% withdrawal rate. That's ridiculous. Or I hope you misunderstood. I hope we didn't put out trash like that.
Was it 4 to 5%?
No, it shouldn't be 4 to 5%. It ought to be more than that. I mean, if you're making 12 in good mutual funds and the S&P is average 11.8, and if inflation for the last 80 years is average 4%, if you make...
Now, Dave is right here that the S&P over the past, since 1927, has averaged just around 12%. So almost for the past 100 years, there's been an average return of 100% or of 12%. But interestingly, Dave always talks about his mutual fund that returns 12%. And you can look at some data on this mutual fund going back to 1934, and it has returned about 12%. But what's interesting is it has not had an annualized average return of 12% in my lifetime. I backtested all back to the early 80s, and it's been a little over 10%. So if you go back to 1934, it's had an annualized return of around 12%, but it actually has been a while since even the fund that he refers to a lot has had that type of return.
12 and you need to leave 4% in there for inflation raises, that leaves you 8. So I'm perfectly comfortable drawing 8. But if you want to be a little bit conservative, 7, but sure not 5 or 3.
Well, I was trying to back check it because, 3 to 5, I thought that was a big range. And a lot of the studies I found showed...
Well, there's a lot of studies that are stupid in this space.
Dave's right about that. There are a lot of studies in this space that are stupid and a lot of, Monte Carlo simulations that are overly conservative and just scare a lot of people and are often based on faulty assumptions. So we're in agreement there.
And inflation is 4, and you leave 4 in there, so your nest egg grows by 4. It's simple. 8 is what's left over. So if you got $1 million and you leave 4% in there, that's $40,000. Okay, so you now have $1,040,000. So the next year you get a rate of return of 12%, 11.5% on the $1,040,000. Mm-hmm. And the next year it'll be $1,090,000, 1.1, right? Because your nest egg is growing by the rate of inflation, giving you a cost of living raise every year. So as long as you're doing that, you're fine. And so if you want to be a little bit conservative, maybe 5%.
Would you say
but there's all these goobers out there who have always put this 4% crap in the market, and I'm just irate right now that we have joined the stupidity.
Why is it that stupid, though?
It's too low. It's too low because it's not realistic. You do not need to live on 4% of your money for your nest egg to survive.
Yeah, even if you did a rate of return of 10% or something.
Yeah, and what it sets up is this guy now, he doesn't think he's got enough money.
I'm sympathetic to Dave's general concern around the 4% rule and a lot of retirees feeling they don't have enough money. But Dave misses one giant and really important point. So the thing that Dave overlooks is called the sequence of return risk. And that means that people who retire into a down market, even with the same average rate of return, risk blowing up their retirement. So I'm going to show you a chart here. So you have a chart, two people who retire at age 65. They both have $1 million account and they both withdraw 5% rate of return, which is $50,000 a year. The one person retires into an up market, the other person retires into a down market. If you average the returns over their entire, the full retirement over the 25 years between age 65 and age 90, they have the exact same average rate of return. But one person retires into a market where the market is going up, the other person retires into a market where the market is going down. And if you look at the numbers on this chart here, the person who retires into the down market, about halfway into the retirement, they completely deplete their retirement savings. So even though they had the same rate of return over the course of the retirement, the one person completely wipes out the retirement, taking out 5% rate of return. This is called the sequence of return risk. And so I ran a sequence of return risk on the actual market beginning in 1927, going up to the latest data I think I had, which is ended in 2022. So nearly 100-year period. And what I asked the data was essentially, during this period, are there any periods where if I retired in a particular year, over the next 30 years, I would run out of money? And I'll show you the graph here, but there was, let me see, how many years were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different years that if you'd retired and pulled out 5% inflation adjusted over the next 30 years, you would have run out of money because either one of two problems or both together. You had inflation taking off and you retired into a market that was on the way down. But the problem is that you have to sell stock into a down market, and then it's just much harder for you to recover, particularly if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down years in a row. It just keeps going down. And as you can see in these charts, it'll just cause people to just basically plummet. So here we have a chart, and this shows the same person who retires into a down market, but not only does their retirement survive, but it thrives. It does fine. And what they did, and the way around the sequence of return risk, is that they keep a separate pot of money. I typically recommend about 5 years of living expenses over and above Social Security. So, if you need $50,000 a year to retire and you have $30,000 in Social Security, you would want to keep about $100,000 typically in government tips, right? Because they're inflation adjusted. And you keep that $100,000 in there. And so if there is a down market, you don't have to sell in the down market. So if you look here, this person retires into a down market that as soon as they retire, they have 3 down years in a row, but they don't have to sell into that downturn. They can just pull from that other bucket of money, that secure bucket of money. And what that allows people to do is it allows them to avoid the sequence of return risk. And it also allows you to take more risk in your portfolio, which can end up growing your portfolio significantly more over the life of your retirement. Because if you go back 200 years, the real rate of return, so the rate of return over and above inflation, so once you subtract out inflation, the real rate of return of the U.S. markets over the past 200 years has been 6.9%. And the real rate of returns of bonds has been somewhere closer to 3%. So if you have a higher concentration of stock, your portfolio is going to grow more over the life of your retirement. Dave is a big fan of going heavy into stocks. I tend to agree with him on that point, but only if you have another pot of money that you can pull from in a down market. And that money needs to be in about the safest place that you can get it, which for most people is going to be in government bonds that are inflation protected. So even if there is a skyrocketing inflation, that money will keep up with the rate of inflation. And so if you have that pot of money, you can take more risk in your other portfolio, but you don't have to sell into a down market. And that allows you to avoid the sequence of return risk. Well, hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. And then we have a couple exciting videos coming up in the next couple of weeks. So go ahead and subscribe, ding that bell so you get an alert every time we release a new video. And as always, if you're looking for a financial advisor, I would love the opportunity to work with you. You can just click the link below and we can schedule a no pressure call so we can see if we would be potentially a good fit. Hey, thanks for watching. If you're wondering how you're doing related to other people's retirement, how much you have saved compared to other people, I'm going to link to last week's video where we talk about what the average 60-year-old has saved to retire at.